That's it. That's it.
Oh shit!
Wow.
Oh shit! Thanks for sharing that.
That's it. Dude, they are losing their shit. That is awesome.
Hell yeah! How long has it been since we had a no-hitter with the Yanks?
Ladies and gentlemen, we up in here. We are hype right now. It's your boy, Shaun Q, my partner, like always.
Jay Roman.
Together, we are OSP. We're a little hype right now. It's Wednesday night. It's May 19th. We just saw Corey Kluber pitch a no-hitter for the Yankees, baby. In the year of the no-hitters, we got us one. Yeah. Yeah. All excited. I was just telling Jay that I was at a Dodger game yesterday. Dodgers and the Diamondbacks, a.k.a. Dodgers batting practice. And I'm watching the game.
Diamondbacks used to be nice.
Yeah, they haven't been nice since Zach Greinke was there for a minute. And before that, what, Randy Johnson?
Yeah, that's true.
It's been a hot minute. So I'm at the game and I'm watching. It's funny how those of us who have to wear masks, we're all kind of spread out. We got like rows and shit to ourselves. And then the vaccination section is up there all just crowded with like 400 people just sitting there uncomfortably feeling stupid. Like probably shouldn't have told them I was vaccinated. It's so ass backwards right now. It's crazy. But the best part about the game was a week ago, all these Dodger fans, it was like a week and a half ago, they were playing the Angels, and all these Dodger fans were like, Albert Pujols is a big, fat, old, out-of-shape bitch. Boo! And then, a week and a half later, bases loaded, here comes Albert Pujols, and the Dodger fans, there's our guy! There's our man! Come on, Albert! Fucking ridiculous.
Damn.
I love sports so much because of moments like that. Just I looked at this one guy, he had an Angel jersey on, an Albert Pujols jersey at the bar. And I was like, dude, as soon as he became a Dodger, what you do is you take that jersey, you put it on a hanger, you put that shit in the closet. And you leave it there.
Well, now it's a throwback.
There, right? You leave it there until he's in the Hall of Fame. You don't wear that shit to a bar where they have the Angel game on where he's not a part of, and the Dodger game on where he's hitting for the Dodgers. Like, you should just feel stupid in that thing.
Yeah.
Right? Like, you should. When Curtis Renison went to the Mets, we're like, yo, I'm not wearing that dude's jersey. Like, when Johnny Damon came to the Yankees, there was nobody at the Yankee Stadium with their Johnny Damon Red Sox jersey on. They're like, no, fuck that guy. He's playing in pinstripes.
Yo, same thing with the Dodgers when Piazza went to the Mets. No one was rocking Piazza gear after that.
And it's one of those.
Oh, yeah, I mean, still support this? Nah.
Yeah, you're like, no, especially if you're in a bar and it's like LA versus LA. Like, you're going to hear this shit all the time. That is the time to take that jersey, roll that some bitch up, throw it in a suitcase somewhere, and wear it as a throwback next year when he's super retired. Yeah. Anyway, we should get right off into our what's popping. And what's popping is Marvel is hitting people in the trailer news and the teaser news. Bam, they just dropping shit. And they hit us with Here Comes Carnage.
Mm-hmm. Right? Or the title is Let There Be Carnage, but I keep saying Here Comes Carnage because I love the idea of him on the way. Can't wait. There he is. There he is. My Spider-Man encyclopedia. Oh yeah, he's right in there.
Look at this guy. Yeah, I remember the Carnage video game on Sega. That was the red cartridge, and I was like, "Ooh, the cartridge is red. That means
Maximum Carnage."
Maximum Carnage. I was like, "That means the game must be dope."
I don't know if I actually own that game, but I loved playing it. It was hard as hell for some of the levels, but it was dope. It was a lot of fun. You played at Venom, played against Carnage, all that stuff.
Dope ass game. And so they put that trailer out, the Tom Hardy Venom 2, and then Marvel also went ahead and released some trailers for what's coming in Phase 4 for some the theatrical movies that are dropping, like Shang-Chi. We saw the trailer for. They did a little clip about the Eternals in there, a little bit of a Doctor Strange. So everybody's been talking like, oh, Marvel's going this way, and Marvel's about to come with that heat. You know what I mean? Everybody was talking about the Snyder cut. Now Marvel's about to come with that 5. That 5. Ah!
We got 3 Marvel MCU films this year coming from the summertime to December, so it's about to be on. You know? And that's not even including the other 2 shows at least that are coming. So
they got big announcements and Hawkeye. So yeah, man, Marvel's doing some big shit. So Jay and I was like, yo, man, it's been a while since we did a top 5. This seems like an easy pick. Why not just do our top 5 Marvel movies of all time?
I'm gonna make this clear though. I want to make this clear because I want to hear from the Yahoos, especially you, Ink. I'm watching you, man. Watching you. This is not, film quality production. We're talking my favorite, your favorite. We had to maybe mix up a little bit because we had some crossover. Excuse me. We had some that had that crossed over. So we mixed it up a little bit so that we don't really have any repeats. But there's some that we're going to just completely agree on. And there's some that we're going to I don't see it, but okay. And you know what? If people disagree, send us your top 5. Let us know. I want to hear it. And then I maybe might say something to you about why I don't care or why you're a suck. I don't know, something like that. Or why I might agree. But you probably won't agree with mine. So
before you jump on and start telling us, how could you put that in your top 5? Give us your top 5 first, and then prepare to be judged. Just gonna shit on ours. So in no particular order, we did have a kind of way we wanted to do it. Is we wanted to start with what kind of not got us into it, but what was like the thing that got us motivated and pumped up to watch Marvel movies at all. Because there are kids like we both have kids. Even my nephew's 22, who, you know, big budget the MCU has been around big styles since he was like a kid. Like that's all he knows.
Half his life now.
A little bit more than half his life. So it's one of those like we didn't have access to all these movies when we were younger. We had like a couple of made for TV movies, like and some like made for TV Punisher, made for TV Spider-Man, made for TV Hulk. We had some crap. I mean, we had
well, Punisher had a theatrical release, at least the first one. Thomas Jane,
but and that's I'm gonna go back before that. But yeah, it's one of those like, okay, yeah, sure. So it's like the generation before us had comic books, we had the cartoons, and then now the generation after us has the movies. That's just the evolution of Marvel. So we have our top 5, and I will concede to you first, sir. Get at 'em.
All right, I'm gonna go in basically what got me super hyped for the whole MCU, because there's some that are actually not technically MCU, but I got to go with Civil War. And I've maybe said this before. Civil War was my intro really into the comics universe, because when I first moved back to New York, I walked into a comic shop that I didn't even realize was a comic shop at first, because I'm looking at the art wall. My cousin tells me, "Hey, turn around." We're actually there for a signing by Topher Grace as Venom for the poster for Spider-Man 3. So he's like, "Yo, turn around." I turn around. I'm like, "Oh my gosh, this is amazing." So the first comic I ever bought, the first trade paperback, the first graphic novel, if you want to call it these days, you know, they're not really that. I don't consider that unless that's exactly what they are. They're just for that. But anyway, the first collected book I bought was a Punisher Civil War. You know, and so I was like, "Oh, this is incredible. This is like all the superheroes are fighting." Now I moved to New York, I guess, right already when Captain America died. He had just died in the comics. So so I backtracked. I bought that Christmas. I bought the stack. I bought all the Civil War trades that had come out. I caught the whole story. So when the movie came out, I was the most hype I think I'd ever been for any Marvel movie. I saw it multiple times. I still watch it all the time. And also it had some of the best intros to some of my favorite characters, which, you know, when we talk about that, we're talking about Black Panther. What other badass intro can you get? Like, what more badass intro can you get besides Black Panther? The way he comes out and boom, claws come out. He's fighting Winter Soldier. And then you also have Spider-Man hits the MCU when it comes to the Civil War movie. So when it comes to all of them, I have to say it might be my like number 1 favorite because it has all the characters in there. And again, I think I mentioned it before. I'm done with comparing it to the comics. I just wanted to be entertained, and I thought it blew me away with how well they did. Close to the comics? Hell no, way off. But close enough that I was like, I can follow this storyline. I can dig that, and I really appreciated the way they brought in Black Panther and the way they brought in Spider-Man. It felt organic. It felt natural, and you know, whether they are on the right side or not, it really felt like, okay, this is a really strong way to go. And then the fact that they were setting up the mentorship with Tony Stark and all that, and then they were setting up, you know, basically Cap to be a war criminal and these other guys to be war criminals, you know, because they didn't want to sign this document. That turns out that Iron Man may have been right about this thing about having like a shield around the earth and having more designated, you know, duties. But, you know, this whole big thing about that may be right, but not in the way of, you know, having to be controlled by any kind of government or, you know, governing body. That I never agreed with. Screw that.
I love Civil War. It's one of my favorites. If it's probably in my top 3. I removed it because you had it on your list, and I had no problem switching it with something else. But I love Civil War. I love the introduction of those characters. I like the introduction of Zemo. I really like they were setting up for this actual war. Like they were gonna have this battle scene at this airport, and it was just, I don't know. I felt like it was dope. Like it was like the midway point between their story arc of what they were getting to when it came to like Endgame, and it was a perfect midway. It was perfect. I loved every part of it. So I don't have any problem with that being on yours. You got Civil War. My first one, the one that got me, that made me a fan of pretty much anything the MCU started to put out, was Blade. Blade is where it all started for me. I remember I was living in New Jersey, and I walked up the street to this movie theater, and I went on a date with this girl, and we watched Blade. And I was like, I like Wesley Snipes. He's killing vampires. I'm in. All right. I watched it. I fucking loved it. I remember it came out, and then a little bit later, I went and watched The Matrix, and then I went back, and it was the first movie I ever saw, one, in the theater by myself, two, in the theater for the second time. I went back and watched it alone. Not because she was talking and wouldn't shut the fuck up, but just because I wanted to fully enjoy it. And so I went back and watched it. And Blade, dude, Blade is just that movie, man. Like I bought the tape, I bought the DVD, I bought the Blu-ray, like
oh my
every
gosh.
every version of Blade that they put out, I had it, man. I was a fan. I liked what they did with the Whistler character. I loved what's his name, Deacon Frost. Like everything about that movie I thought was just dope. I was a fan after that.
His mom was hot too.
Yeah, man, it was like, yeah, because I mean, Sanaa Lathan was hot as shit. And so yeah, the whole movie, I remember watching it in the theater. I'm like, yo, there's a bloodbath at the club. Yo, pretty sure. And I'm like to myself, I'm like, I'm pretty sure I just saw that vampire get his dick sucked over in the corner. Yeah, I did. He's not worried about vampire teeth all over his dick. Whatever. It was a dope movie. That was the one that that was the catalyst for me. And because of that, like that kind of like held the ground for Marvel for a while, because there was a gap, like 10-year gap between that and Iron Man. So
there's a gap between of quality.
Yeah.
When it came to that, because when it came to Marvel, it was, for one, an R-rated film. People forget that it was R-rated. Would it be R-rated now? I don't know. They have different ratings now because people are more open to shit.
Again, vampire getting his dick sucked in the club by the vampire.
True. And there's cussing and all that. So
yeah,
when you have that much gore, there's no reason why it shouldn't be R-rated. So that was a huge point. And plus, Wesley Snipes just looked badass, man.
He was a perfect fucking Blade.
He had the look, he had the fitness, which is still fit today. He had the trench. I mean, he just looked right. It just was amazing. The only other person I ever thought could play it, and that's only because he looks like the one in the comics, is Sticky Fingers from Onyx.
Oh, yes. I didn't like
that's only because he looks like the way Blade looks in the comics.
Yeah.
That's it.
Yeah. I liked Wesley's version, and I think my favorite part from that, I can quote that movie front to back. My favorite scene from that movie, it's so subtle, but it's he's fighting the burnt to a crisp vampire in the hospital, and the police show up. And they see a black man, and they see a burnt to a crisp vampire, and they start shooting the black man. And he goes, "Motherfucker, you out of your damn mind?" Like, we all felt they were like, "Yo, bro, you shoot the brother instead of the vampire?" That was perfect. That to me was mwah.
I mean, Marvel always had that commentary because they had it from their comics, so it was perfectly fitting. Yeah,
it hit right on point. Some motherfuckers always trying to ice skate uphill. Yo. So Blade is the one that started for me. That would be my intro.
So you're excited for the new one?
So I wasn't at first, but then again, I'm one of these people. It's kind of like when you hear that they're making a movie based on the comic book, and all you have is this vision of the comic book in your head, and you're like, oh, it's never going to be like that. And then we all try to get to that level where you're at, where you're like, I don't try to compare to the comic books. I just watch it for entertainment value. I was saying this the other day. it's hard for me to see anybody else play Blade. I didn't like Sticky Fingers as Blade because, one, I didn't like the way the story was going on the show. Two, Wesley Snipes is Blade. You know what I mean? Like the dude, Sticky wasn't big enough. He didn't have the same martial arts skills. Like Wesley Snipes knows that shit in real life. You know what I mean?
Yeah. And he knows how to make it look right on camera. Because he's an action star anyway. So he's always been an action star.
So you had an actual action star, not a rapper, coming in actually doing this shit. You know what I mean? So I like Mahershala Ali. I feel like he's gonna do it. I don't think he'll be as big a Blade. That's the conversation me and my roommate are having. He's a skinnier, toned down, trim version of him. I don't think he can bulk up like Wesley Snipes, but I think he'll kill it. He's a good actor, and movies have shown us between Denzel Washington, Keanu Reeves, anybody can be an action star now. You get the right training, you're on the right diet, anybody can be an action star. Yeah. Liam Neeson is still doing action movies at 96 years old.
Oh my gosh, tell me about it.
So I'm not worried about action stars now doing it because everybody's an action star. Queen Latifah is an action star. I'm gonna
just gonna hang that one right there.
Let that marinate.
I mean, I'm excited for it because I just want to see what they do with it. I am also kind of hoping that Wesley Snipes shows up in it somehow. Like I don't know as what a mentor, something because I feel like at least a little homage, at least a little nod to us,
Right.
who have been with this these Marvel movies for all this time and accepted them for what they were, and also it didn't try too hard. It didn't try to go the route of other ones, like Hulk, where
Right.
it just like was comicky. You know what I mean? So you had that, then you had X-Men. So X-Men's not even on either one of our lists because I think when you think of the grand scheme of it all, those movies aren't that good. Maybe the
Right.
first one's kind of fun, but whatever. Speaking of that, though, I'm gonna go right into my next one, and I don't care again who has to say anything about this. I love the Incredible Hulk. I love that freaking movie. I've
The
seen
Ed
it a
Norton
dozen
version.
times. Ed Norton, Liv Tyler, and what's his face? Who's now still General Thunderbolt Ross, or now he's like whatever Thunderbolt Ross still, or
Oh yeah,
Corporal, or
and and and
Commander, or
and and Tim Roth. Tim Roth is
yeah,
amazing.
exactly. So you know, they brought all these guys back. I mean, not back, but they have all these guys who have still kind of continued part of it. Ed Norton, I feel, in his no, I don't do sequels type thing, which you did a sequel, but you don't do them otherwise. You decide to not come back, which is fine. I don't really care. I enjoyed that he was a younger version of Bruce Banner. I liked
Right.
that. Ruffalo, everyone loves. We get it. He makes a great Bruce Banner. Him mixed as a Hulk, he's the voice. I kind of like that. I don't mind that. But the version of the Hulk I find the best is the Incredible because the graphics look meaner. He's greener. I didn't mean to actually say that like that, but but he's mean and the graphics look more to me at the time realistic.
Right.
Because he wasn't huge like a house or
Right.
like a tree in the like he was in the first one that was had like comic panels. That shit was just whack. Um, the storyline was okay, but the way the style was terrible. He wasn't huge like that. He was just a very hulking person, and then yes, got stronger as he got more upset. So there was that, and then they bring in Abomination, bring in
Mm.
this cat who thinks, okay, the only way I can compete is if I, inject myself as well. The only thing that they messed up on is, in my opinion, is that they didn't continue that line. There has not been another Hulk movie. People, sometimes forget this, which is now that was in 2008. Civil War was 2016. So, I mean, that right there is an 8-year gap, and Hulk's not even in that one. So we are 13 years later. There's not been another Hulk film. Maybe because that one didn't translate well for a lot of people.
Mm.
But either way, you have a lot of things you left on the table in that one. For one, yes, it was integrated to MCU at the very end by Iron Man showing up. Okay, great. Or I should say Tony Stark. Here you have a Hulk problem. Um, but where's Abomination been? He didn't die. He should be in the raft. He should be in the
Right.
damn jail. They should have, as they walked around that raft, should have seen an imprint of Abomination. Also, you had who was coming out afterward, and I think I don't want to mix up the universes. It's not Brainiac. He's DC. The guy who the scientist was supposed to become with the big brain. Oh gosh darn it, what's his damn name?
I know
Anyway,
you're talking about. I
um,
forget his name, but I know you're talking about.
he was supposed to be coming along. I was hoping in the third movie, it was like, okay, this is going to happen. So it didn't happen though. And then Ed Norton leaves. Ruffalo comes. Ruffalo's the guy. He's now been Hulk for 10 years, 12
Yeah.
years, the whole time since Avengers. So Hulk being right after Iron Man, people forget that is technically an MCU film because they incorporated that little bit. But MCU wasn't really MCU yet. But to me, the movie and the storyline and all that, I thought was perfect. I also loved how they showed Ed Norton start to gain control of Hulk. He had
Right.
the 0 days, and then they show him, and it goes, or he has all those days, and his eyes bulge out or pop out, and they're green. You know what I mean? I love that shit. We haven't really seen that since, except for in the Avengers, where he's like, "I'm always angry," and he busts out. Maybe that's one of my favorite lines, I guess. And he busts out and smashes that thing in the face. I just really wish, and I hope when they do that, they bring back some elements from that. Maybe not. Obviously, they're not going to change the way the Hulk looks, but why has it not been another Hulk movie? He showed up in freaking Thor Ragnarok as one of my favorite versions of Hulk. I love that Hulk. He's King Hulk in that. Or he's called the World Breaker. Um, and they, to me, just did him dirty. They just did him dirty. I'm so mad at that movie still.
You're mad at Thor Ragnarok?
They made him like a big baby. He was like a giant baby teenager. You know what I mean? And it's like, okay, man, I'm not feeling this right here. But Incredible Hulk, man, to me, I thought it was spot on. I thought it was spot on. You know what I mean?
So I love that movie. I think it's a dope movie. I so in wrestling, it started with ECW and moved over to WWE. But when somebody goes for a big move and they fail, the whole crowd goes, "You fucked up." The
Yeah.
message to Ed Norton and Terrence Howard: "You fucked up. You fucked up." Y'all had no idea the big picture, like the money you would have been making and the legacy you would have created if you
Yeah.
had just stuck around. It's fucking hilarious to me. But I'm just gonna follow mine up with Thor Ragnarok. Now, let me preface this by saying this: I didn't pick Thor Ragnarok just because Jay Roman said he hated it. What kind of an asshole would I be if I did that? I, like quite a few people, not many, I guess, but quite a few people, I enjoy Thor Ragnarok. I enjoy, and it's same thing. Not looking at the comic book, not looking at the King Hulk version, not just looking at it for what it is. I became a fan of Taika Waititi, who directed it. It's his
and he
introduction in the,
and he plays Korg.
yeah, it's his introduction in the Marvel Universe, and I like it because when I first saw it, I was like, "Oh, what is happening? This has nothing to do with the MCU. They're in space. It's so 80s." And it's like it's one of the first times where I'm watching a movie, and as I'm watching it, it's growing on me. Like the more I watch, I'm like, "Oh, okay, well, Korg is hilarious. Oh shit, there is Hulk. Why is Loki up in the man? Well, Jeff Goldblum, come on, man. Okay, I'm fucking with it." And I'm like, there's certain things that the more I watch it, the more I like it. I like how funny it was. It was really fucking funny. I like there's little, you know me, I like little side jokes. Like my favorite line from that is, or my scene is when Thor and Hulk are fighting, they're in the arena and Loki's just watching. And we all remember one of the best scenes from Avengers was that speech he gave Hulk before Hulk just full on just ragdoll this nigga like nothing. He's like, God. Yeah. That. So to see him do it to Thor and Loki, like, yes, that's what it feels like. Oh, in your fucking face. That to me was hilarious. Like that was worth it. I thought that was dope. I like the music. I like that what's her name? Kate Blanchett showed up and she's like the evil sister, and it was like, damn man, Odin was a piece of shit daddy. Like he was a terrible father.
Well, kings don't ever want to talk about the stuff they had to do to become king.
Yeah, and I like that. And so, I mean, if you just look at the star power of that movie, everybody was in that movie. Fucking for whatever reason, Matt Damon's in that movie. Like, it's just, it's
That's
so,
true.
it's so good and so bad. Like, I liked it. And personally, anybody who knows me, who's ever had a conversation with me about those black Brits coming over here taking our jobs.
Well, she's I think an LA person actually.
I appreciate it when Americans get to use British accents and run that shit like that. So I loved that Tessa Thompson had her British accent. I fucking I put her up there with Tyrion Lannister, the little person from New Jersey. Yeah.
So I got to follow up with you on that one a little bit. Okay, so as much as I dislike the movie, I'm gonna say it straight out. It's my least favorite movie in MCU. There are so many elements to the movie that I do like. And so when I do seek out the movie here and there, because I want to get to those parts. The Loki stuff is amazing, especially in the beginning, and the movie started off fine for me. I loved when Surtur, I think that's how you say his name, was talking to him and he kept rotating. And he's like, okay, hold on, come back around. I love those parts. Right. Very funny in those ways. It's just the way they did the Hulk really, really irked me. When you speak of Tessa Thompson, though, as far as how good she looks, I don't think she looks better in any movie than Thor Ragnarok. There's something about the way she looks, her hair, the makeup. I love it. I don't know what it is. She looks great in everything, but yeah, I love her in that film. So I'll give you that too. And yeah, Goldblum, Damon, all these cats who show up. I get all that. I like after they leave whatever that world is. I like after that. So when I watch it, not that I don't speed it up or anything like that. I like some of the few earlier parts, but once it gets to them getting through the devil's anus, I'm on board from then on. I love every piece of it after that. I love when he gains the full lightning power. Granted, he has to lose an eye to get there.
He's a thunder
I love
god.
all that. He's a thunder god, so I love all that, and I love when Odin's like, "Are you the god of hammers?" I was like, so that's perfect. So you're right, Kate Blanchett. I love all that stuff. It's just, gosh, that whole part where, besides the fight, that he has to find Hulk and get out. I hate that part, man. It just kills me.
Yeah, I can get that. But I mean, I like Idris Elba's in it. Fucking what's in it? Carl Urban is in it. Leader of the Boys. Like everybody's in this movie, man. And it's such I just like the overall product. And what it did was it made me go look for more Taika Waititi films. So now that he's a huge directing star,
Oh yeah.
now that he does stuff with, Jon Favreau fell in love with him after that, and he does stuff
Yeah.
for The Mandalorian. I love Jojo Rabbit. I just went and watched. There's one on Netflix. It's called Hunt for the Wilder People, and it's got my man from Jurassic Park, the original, and the kid who's in Deathpool, the chubby New Zealand kid. And it's actually a good movie. Like, I like this dude, and I would never have found him as a director if not for this movie. So I like
Yeah, that's
Thor
true.
Ragnarok.
I give you
So
that.
I like what it led me to, the research made me do. I like Thor Ragnarok. Say what you want, shit on me all you want. Let me see your little punk ass top 5 list before y'all start talking shite.
Ay,
What you got
ay, ay.
next, Jay?
Ay, ay, ay. Oh my gosh.
What you got? Where you going? Where we going? Where you at,
I don't
huh?
even know. I
Where you
mean,
going? You on gangbang?
what I say? I said Civil War, and I said Hulk.
Yeah.
I mean, oh yeah, these are in no particular order. I don't like Hulk more than Civil War, stuff like that. But
Right.
I'm gonna stay right into the mix with MCU, and I'm gonna go 2014 with Winter Soldier.
Okay.
Because Winter Soldier made me like Captain America movies. Because like the comics, I feel like the first movie just didn't do it for me. He was too goody two shoes. There wasn't enough nuance. It was his origin story. I get that. I just didn't really like it. Plus, why they got to put his head on a little body? I never understood the graphic choice on that one.
Stupid.
Okay, whatever.
God, that was
like,
so bad.
Just get a different person. Granted, yeah, his face isn't going to change much just because he becomes a full-grown person, or a larger person, I should say, because the other person is full-grown. But anyway, but you have Sebastian Stan that comes up in there. You have Agent Carter, which I always forget her damn name, but she is so damn fine. You brought in, I think you brought in Falcon in that movie. You know what I mean? Scarlett Johansson is in there as Black Widow, of course, and they're all fighting Winter Soldier. And I didn't know what to expect from Winter Soldier on the big screen, because in the comics, his intro was not liked at first, because he was dead for like 70 years in the comics, and all of a sudden, here comes this character. Oh my gosh, it's Bucky! How dare you bring back a character who's been dead for 70 years? They did it. It was a hit. They did it in the movie. It was an even bigger hit. Up until, I would say, Superman, Man of Steel, and maybe a couple others, but they had, to me, the best fight scene out of any of these superhero movies. When it's him and Winter Soldier and it's hand to hand, and like the knife drops and he picks up with the other hand, and just like the combo, because it was more natural, I guess you could say, but it maybe a little bit sped up, but it just looked good. It just looked so fluid, so perfect, and he was just the perfect badass. He made Evans question himself, you know what I mean? Or Captain America question himself. And then you're like, wait, so what is this guy's history? What did he do? And then you see later on how he leads into Civil War by killing Tony Stark's parents and stuff like that. Spoiler alert. Anyway, so I loved the character, and he just looked badass. Long hair, big and brawny, metal arm, the mask, And then of course he's mind controlled, so he's just a beast with no emotions. I love that. Then you have Frank Grillo as the guy who eventually becomes Crossbones, which, man, his short-lived scene in Civil War killed me. I wanted so much more from him. But you also had GSP was in there. George St. Pierre was in there. You know what I mean? And it's like, he's Batroc. Batroc's not big in the comics. He's here a little bit. But it was super dope that they introduced all these characters. And there's so much more. I mean, Stan Lee was in it, of course, which he was up in pretty much all of them until Endgame. But it did it for me, man. It does it for me every time I watch it. It comes on. Oh, you had MODOK. You had fucking MODOK, I think, or no, was it MODOK? The guy who they made he wasn't, no, or was it the other guy? It was it's not MODOK. It's not MODOK. The guy with the screen. The guy on the screen in the comics. I was really wondering how they'd incorporate him. Damn it, what the hell's his name?
Yeah, anyway, I know you're talking about the German.
If I see if I have the name here. Anyway, so when I saw him, I was like, oh, that's badass. I knew his name at the time. Now I'm just kind of lost, but I was like, that's kind of badass that they made him like on all the screens or the big screen or whatever versus a walking robot with a middle section. I'm always wondering how they're going to bring some of these characters in. Like someday they're going to bring in MODOK. How are they going to bring in this guy? Now they have a cartoon of him coming out, or that's come out now, I think on Hulu. That's really weird. I don't understand how that's working, but Winter Soldier it has that action movie feel. It's not too superhero-y where everyone can fly and all that. It's more grounded, I guess you can say. Yes, these guys are super strong, but they're fighting each other. So it's not anything extreme. I mean, it's just so badass. I can't really explain any much more than that how cool it is.
I like Winter Soldier. When people bring the argument of, well, a lot of these big movie stars, remember I said before, all these big time old ass Hollywood movie stars who were like, I would never do a comic book movie. I'd
Oh, yeah.
never do it.
Real quick, I may have said Sharon Carter. I meant Peggy Carter.
Peggy
Sharon
Carter,
Carter
yeah.
is hot
You
too, but
said,
Peggy Carter is whoo,
yeah.
whoo.
We said
That's a
Agent
Brit
Carter.
right there. That
Yeah.
makes me
We
a
said
little more.
Agent Carter. Yeah. The OG Agent Carter.
Oh, I said Agent Carter. Okay, good.
I for those people who are like, I don't do comic book movies. So you're telling me that you're not only better than Jack Nicholson, who did Batman, you're better than Academy Award winner Robert Redford, who was the bad guy in Winter Soldier? Nigga, please.
Yeah.
Robert Redford did it, and he's like 107 years old. So stop with this. I don't do comic book movie shit. You're missing out on a great quality product. I like the Winter Soldier. I love the hand-to-hand combat. I love the fight scenes. I love that he kicked the shit out of every Avenger that was around at that time in a fucking hallway. You know what? Let's do my number 3. Staying in that, in the heart of it. My number 3, Black Excellence, Black Panther. Black Panther did so many things, not only for the MCU, not only for movies, not only for theaters, but the impact for that it had for a long time. Now, keep in mind, I see that there's a recurring theme on mine. There's Blade, who, I mean, for like years, if I want to be a superhero, like if there are not a lot of Avengers I look like. My options are Nick Fury or Blade. Like that was it. And I mean, you can be, but it just looks awkward when you see this dark ass dude dressed up as Thor. It looks awkward. You know what I mean? So Black Panther was like, here, have so many more options. There you go. And it was the fact that, and it was a beautiful movie. It was beautifully directed. It was beautifully shot. It was as colorful as you want it to be. It had the tribal African story. It had the hood story in Oakland, like everything you would want when you hear that they're making a movie about Black Panther. I feel like from front to back, cover to cover, perfect. It was perfect down to the casting and everything. It was just perfect. I watched that movie a bunch of times and I'm looking like maybe if they had recast. No, the casting was perfect. I liked everything about it. I love that, and it is weird. I always thought about that too. Like the fact that Black Panther got his own movie and Hulk didn't, or in this new MCU doesn't make sense. But I mean, Hulk has 2 movies. The problem that people have with Hulk is that one movie, the Ang Lee version, which was very colorful and it was artistic. It just didn't fit the MCU. It was not a great product. If you didn't know anything about the MCU, if the MCU never went forward and that Hulk movie existed, it's not a bad movie. But then they came in with the Incredible Hulk, and it was 2 different things. So then they're at that point, like, we can't just make another Hulk movie with a third guy. We just did 2 of them. So that's how I justified them not having Hulk not having his own movie. But Black Panther absolutely needed his, and he fucking killed it. It was perfect. It was a great commentary on Black people fighting with each other when there's shit going on around the world. Like, why are we fighting each other? Why are these tribes killing each other when we should be fighting the real enemy? The real enemy is out there. I love that. I love everything about that movie. Black Panther became, the minute I saw it, and I've seen it, I saw that one in the theater like 3 times. The minute I saw it, instantly went to my top 3. I don't see anything wrong with Black Panther. Very curious to see what they do with the next one, but the first one, as is, standalone, is perfect.
Wakanda forever.
Forever.
Speaking of that, Black Panther, I mean, for one, of course, we lost Boseman, and it sucks that we're just not going to see him as Black Panther anymore. And they're not going to bring him back. They're going to bring a different one at some point. But so what you're talking about when it comes to Black Panther and the whole infighting versus fighting outward, Killmonger was, I don't know if I said this before to you in conversation or whatever, but Killmonger was, up until that point, the only MCU villain that actually made you think, is this guy right? Everyone else is world domination, straight hardcore killer, universe domination, all that stuff. He came from a real place that actually probably a lot of people in this world feel like, I need to get what's mine because these people took from me and they continue to take from our people. And he brings that up. He's like, you have all this here and you let all your people around the world suffer. And they're like, those aren't all our people. Wakanda is all our people. And that's a huge conversation in all communities. And I think to this day, Black Panther, and that's a big reason why, because they bring these conversations up, they bring some of these subjects up, is I think still the #1 grossing single character film in MCU, and I think top 10 period in all movie making. something like that, with the huge amount of billions that they made, something like 3 or 4 billion. So it not only was great, but it broke ground. It made you see we can have a mostly black cast with black writers, black filmmakers, black everybody in there, and it be quality product
Yeah.
for the MCU. Granted, there was other things before that, but nothing was as big. And now people have caught on, like, okay, there is money to be made here in this community. Let's actually put efforts into bringing this community with us and not just exploiting them all the time. It's perfect. Plus, I still think Killmonger was right. What can I say? You know what I mean? I'm violent like that sometimes.
So you know what? I will agree with this. I will agree with that to an
People don't
extent.
agree with Killmonger was right because he wanted to just kill everybody, but whatever.
I don't know if it's because I'm, I don't know, a crazy person. I try to find the logic in every villain's version. Like
He
you
had
said,
sound logic. There was nothing wrong with his logic.
right? But I'm saying, like, I don't think he was the only one where, I mean, that seems like you just said, like Incredible Hulk, Abomination. His idea was like the government has this weapon that can turn into a monster. The only way I can beat this monster is if I become a monster. He's not wrong.
Yeah,
he's not wrong. When you watch, what were we just talking about? When you watch, I mean, yeah, Killmonger, the same thing. Civil
I mean,
War, Zemo
he
wanted
was
to.
kind of the only one who who forced the main superhero to change. Like he had
Right.
to change the way things were done in his country and for the world and all that stuff. So up to this point, I mean, up to that point, he was the only one that forced change upon the hero. You know what I mean? And made the hero have to really question what have we done and why did we do it and what are we going to do forward? And his own people turned against him. That one punk ass Kaluuya, Mr. Kaluuya. So
So because you got an Oscar, you could turn on the king, huh?
You know what I mean?
You got an Academy Award, turn on Black
so,
Panther, motherfucker.
So that's really what that's about. It's just more about he really had to question himself as a person and as a king and the person he wants to be going future. And then he tells his dad, he's like, "You guys were wrong.
Yeah.
You were wrong." So that was a huge moment for any kind of movie like that. You just don't see that. It's usually good and bad, and it's very clear. Right. You know what I mean, because he really made him question himself. So that's a great freaking pick, man. And yeah, you have a theme there, of course. And Black Panther, I was going to put in mind, but you know what? There's a couple others in there that I gotta throw in because they're all me. They're all about me.
Yeah. So what we'll do is we'll take a break. Let's take a break real quick. Because you're getting a little excited. I'm gonna need you to calm down, sir. Calm. We'll take a break. We'll come right back. Keep your eyes open. Keep your ears open.
Oh yeah. Here we come back with our little MCU top 5. Again, I'm gonna remind people who maybe just chimed in or just getting in right now. This is what we like, not film quality. So don't give me no bullshit. You don't think the Hulk or Incredible Hulk is that good of a movie. I don't care. I'm gonna tell you why I like it. And that's about it. Because I thought it was badass. Anyway, I gotta come in, man, and anyone who knows me knows. I love Spider-Man. Love me some Spider-Man. We used to have this archway in my old house, like when I was like 4 years old. I don't know why, and maybe because they just made it smaller at the time, or maybe I'm just imagining this. I used to think I was Spider-Man, and I swear my feet could reach the sides, each side. I was never tall, so it's not like I had long legs, but the archway was narrow. So I kind of climbed it, and I would think I was Spider-Man. Anyway, that's a little story about me when I was a youngin', real small youngin'. But Amazing Spider-Man with Andrew Garfield is my favorite Spider-Man of all the movies, of all the Spider movies. Not that I don't like the Tobey Maguire ones. I do like 1 and 2. 3 was okay. I hated a few things about it, but there are some things that weren't bad. The fact that they brought back Venom, but he's not part of Spider-Man yet. Now they're bringing up Carnage, and he's not part of Spider-Man yet. It's kind of killing me. Whatever. Amazing Spider-Man does it for me because let me just tell you the cast. You have Andrew Garfield, you have Emma Stone, you have Dennis Leary, of course you have Stan Lee, you got Sally Field, you have what's that guy's name? Martin Sheen? Martin Sheen? Yeah. Is that his name? Martin Sheen, and a few others, of course, that come in and the cast and the ensemble it's to me so great. Andrew Garfield plays a really great, to me, Peter Parker. Not a little punk, not puny Parker, who get head dunked in the toilets and stuff like that, or whatever they used to do in the comics. There's a few things. Maybe they weren't dunking heads in toilets, but he's not puny Parker, and he kind of always stood up for people. He wasn't just like shoved in the locker all the time. He always stood up for himself and defended himself and defended other people. Also, what I like it more for than the other ones is Tobey Maguire was really cool. I didn't mind him as Peter Parker, and as Spider-Man, but his webs were natural from him, which I actually don't mind. I don't mind, but it's a really cool part of the storyline when you see Spider-Man make his webs,
Yeah,
make his suit and all that. And the suits are all badass in the movies. Actually, I don't like the MCU ones as much as I like the other ones, but suits are all badass. But Andrew Garfield's demeanor, his his confidence, his joking style, the tone, the way he does it, I love it. Like when he's like, "Oh, you have a knife, you have a knife," and he's like, and it's like it just flows perfectly.
right,
And I love that Emma Stone playing Gwen Stacy is not what do you call them? Some kind of flower. Anyway, it is not weak. She's not
right.
a small, timid character. Not that really Mary Jane was, but
But
she
she's not
wasn't
a
really much.
damsel in distress type
Not
thing.
exactly. She's not that. She's smart. She's smart. She's talented. She's tough. Because she has a captain of the police force in New York City for a dad. So I really appreciate that. I don't know about how much I like that she knows like halfway through the movie that he's Spider Man. Whatever. I'm sure that's that's negligible. I'm gonna call it negligible on that one. That's on them. Whatever. But Paul Giamatti's in there a little bit. So it's pretty dope. I really like the way they did it. Plus they brought in the Lizard. I was always wonder if they would ever bring the Lizard. Lizard was one of the first villains of Spider Man, and I thought they did an amazing job. I remember being at the comic shop recently though, and the owner was like, "That sucked. That movie was terrible. Lizard was awful." And all I could think was, I thought he was pretty badass. He was big and bad. He was smart. He was tough. He had the coat that ripped off, and he was trying to do what I've seen him do in the comics, make everyone else a lizard, because he has this idea like if everyone goes back to the reptilian brains, which they say we've had in the past or whatever, we'd all become a better world. Another world domination type thing. But science versus science, you really had to see them come up with a way to fix it. Also, it showed you the fact that Peter Parker is involved in all those experiments because they were setting up from that one. They were setting up. We saw Electro, we saw Green Goblin, but the Goblin formula is part of because they needed the blood of Peter Parker.
Right.
They never had it because it was formulated for him. From there, we're supposed to be symbiotes. From there, we're supposed to be everything else. And then they brought in the parents. They show the parents. They bring in that little storyline, and then it leads to part two. Like it just was really, really well done. I do miss the wrestling part. That was really, really good in the first one. The first one with Tobey Maguire. I miss that they didn't do that. So okay, I'm fine with that. But I just love that he was a skateboarder, all that stuff. I just thought it was freaking amazing. You know what I mean? And just the way it went was kind of perfect. And the fact that they did the storyline of the death of Captain Stacy, I thought that was amazing. I hated that they did that the Gwen Stacy right after, but that's kind of how it falls in the comics anyway. So, but I thought it was just extremely well done. Totally amazing.
I like that Spider-Man. I like Andrew Garfield. We've had the conversation. Tom Holland is my favorite Spider-Man because when I think Spider-Man, I think 15, 16-year-old high school Spider-Man. And this is a hot take right here, have never, ever, ever liked Tobey Maguire's Spider-Man. I don't give a fuck what people say to me. I don't care how many DMs I'm about to get in my Instagram. Oh, Tobey Maguire. Shut up.
So hold on. You don't like him as Spider-Man or those Spider-Man movies?
I don't mind the movies. I feel like that is one of those roles there were 14 other actors in Hollywood who would have done a better job than Tobey Maguire.
Gotcha.
I originally liked, and I hate that they made him Venom, even though they matched up well. I like Topher Grace as Spider-Man because I feel like he would have been a better Spider-Man than he was Venom. Just because he had, to me, you didn't need great acting chops to play that Spider-Man. I didn't like the way he cried. I didn't like his face. He's like a young dude with like an old man face. Like I don't know how old Tobey Maguire is at any given time. I didn't like that.
That's a good point.
He could be Spider. Like if they're doing like what they're talking about doing and bringing him in the multiverse and all that stuff, Spider-Man, Tobey Maguire can show up now, and you're like, it looks like he shot Spider-Man last year, or he could look like he's 97 years old. I don't fucking know. I never liked his face. I don't like the way he cries. I don't like the way he dances. I don't.
Andrew Garfield has not gotten a call for Into the Spider-Verse, which we know he's probably lying his ass off because he did that as well. I think about Amazing Spider-Man. He's like, I don't play that. I don't know who you're talking about.
Yeah, I've never liked Tobey Maguire as Spider-Man. So when I saw Andrew Garfield, I was like, yes, I fuck with this one. I like the older version. I like the going to college version of Spider-Man. Because I was over that Tobey Maguire shit. But then Tom Holland showed up and I was like, yo, that's fucking Spider-Man. But yeah, Amazing Spider-Man I think it's an amazing movie. I like that it's darker than the first three. I like that I see you have a running theme as well. See, you like the darker version of the movie after the most colorful one just came out. We saw a colorful 3 Spider-Man movies, and then the darker, grittier, grimier Amazing Spider-Man comes out. There was a big colorful Hulk, and then the darker, grittier, grimier Incredible Hulk comes out. So we know what you're into. You like dark shit, Jay Roman, which
You
is
know
cool.
that.
I do too, bro. I mean, come on, man. I got Blade on there, and plus the one that I have next is proof that I like darker, grittier, grimy. Um, Amazing Spider-Man is a good one. So everybody knows I have my 2 favorite superheroes, and if you ever told me to pick one, I would tell you to go fuck yourself. My 2 favorites, gun to your head, shoot me then. Shoot me. Batman and Wolverine. Before they got all commercial, like the comic books I would read the most when I was a kid, where I would read X-Men, but I would love the Wolverine storyline, and I would read Batman. I didn't even like the Justice League. I never liked Superman. I loved Batman. And so to me, if you were to sum up Wolverine, it would be Logan. It was the best send-off of a fucking comic book character that I've ever seen. Ever. 2 of them. Now, I have admitted that when X-Men first came out, I didn't like Hugh Jackman as Wolverine. I was used to my Wolverine being 5'2", stocky as shit, just hunched over, just hairy as shit. And when 6'2" Hugh Jackman showed up, I was like, what the fuck is this? Come on, man. Ugh. And it's like there's a anime version of Wolverine on Netflix that came out like a few years ago, and he did like an anime X-Men, and I don't like it. He's tall, he's skinny, he wears like his wife beater, he looks like he weighs like 115 pounds. I'm like, ew. I don't like it. I'm not a fan. And even Hugh Jackman had to get bulkier and bigger to look more like Wolverine. And so it got to the point where that's just Wolverine. There was no competition. It wasn't like Hulk. There were no other versions of it. Hugh Jackman is Wolverine. So when you look at Old Man Logan, which is basically what that's based on, and you look at Old Man Professor X, the send-off of the 2 of them to me was perfect. It had everything you would want in a Wolverine ending story. It had a legacy. It had him surviving some fucked up shit, because anybody who knows about Wolverine knows he is a survivor, and he usually survives the fucked up shit that he probably usually caused. It had the fact that he didn't heal as fast. He was physically becoming an old man. He had that old man, like Wolverine is a grumpy character.
Yeah.
Grumpy old Wolverine is an asshole. This Wolverine Logan was an asshole, and I loved it. I loved that he wasn't all colorful Disney. Hey, Wolverine, you guys. No, he's getting punched in the face by this kid. And he's telling him to shut the fuck up. Like that's Wolverine to me. And the fact that Professor X has the best line from that movie to me, when he says, he goes like, it's been days, we haven't had a meal, we barely had any sleep. She's 11 and I'm fucking 90. Like I love he was like, that was his version of I'm too old for this shit, dude. Come on, man. Got me out here in these streets. I loved it. And as much as I had to grow and like Hugh Jackman as Wolverine, the minute I saw Patrick Stewart as Professor X, I was like, yeah, that makes sense. Yeah, I didn't see any competition. I was watching Star Trek: The Next Generation. I was like, yeah, that's Professor X. Yeah, perfect. So for those 2 to get sent off the way they did in that movie, that is easily in my top 2, top 3. Logan is such a perfect fucking movie, and I don't know, man. That's one of those movies. I watch it. It gets me. I get a little choked up, and then you start to go back and you watch like the Wolverine when he was in Japan. And you watch what the girl who can see the future, how she explains to him how he's going to die and how it makes sense later. You go back, you watch these movies, and they lined it up. And it was such a good. Hugh Jackman needed to make up to the world for that awful shit Wolverine Origins. that piece of mierda that was Wolverine Origins. And he did. The 2 characters who needed saving the most from that movie were Deadpool, been fixed, and Logan's Legacy, been fixed. Both done. I fuck with Logan. That is easily, and that to me it's gritty, it's grimy, it's dark. There is nothing colorful about that fucking movie at all.
Right from the get-go.
Right from the jump. Like, oh my God. I love it. That's my shit right there.
I have not watched that one with my daughter yet. Speaking of that, I mean, they introduced X-23, which I think her name is Laura. I don't know.
Yeah, Laura.
I never there.
Laura.
So they introduced her, she was a badass, and she was tougher than Wolverine. Granted, at a younger age and all
At
that.
11.
11 chopping heads off and all that because she was made a living weapon. So that to me, that a lot of people love that part. I know I follow a guy on Instagram who like that's his favorite character. He has the number one, encased and graded and all that stuff, and of her character and all that stuff. So Logan's pretty badass. I went into Logan with no expectations,
right?
Because I know the storyline Old Man Logan, and I thought maybe they'd be that, but it wasn't that far along in the future. Right. Plus, Old Man Logan has Hawkeye, has old Hawkeye, has an old Hulk, so it's way different. So when I started watching, I'm like, okay, this is not that route, and that's cool. And they really made up, like you said, for Wolverine Origins, which once you got about halfway through that movie, it was terrible. Everything else is, probably okay into that point, but I actually. I'm super interested to see in Phase 4 who they bring in as the first real mutant, first introed mutant. Again, Wanda is supposed to be a mutant. Yes, she has witch powers, whatever. Pietro was a mutant, but they got their powers from wherever they're saying they got them from. And there's going to be that debate forever. So I'm really interested to see, who I want my first mutant to be. I want it to be Magneto. And right. I feel like if they bring in Magneto, you have to bring in Wolverine. You have to bring in Logan somewhere. It's kind of like they're always on a collision course. Yeah, of course, Professor X is too, but who's going to play Wolverine now? I don't know. Apparently, Hugh Jackman has asked Ryan Reynolds to be in Deadpool. Like, you need to put me in Deadpool 3 as Wolverine. But now that Deadpool is MCU, how's that going to work? Because MCU is not interested in making Hugh Jackman Wolverine anymore. So I'm really interested to see if something happens there, because Deadpool's Deadpool. He can always be separate. He never has to actually be part of everything else.
That part.
So I'm cool with that. So I'm really interested to see what happens. But Hugh Jackman has asked apparently, "Hey Ryan, put me in your damn movie."
Oh, it finally happened because he's been begging Hugh Jackman to be Wolverine for years.
Well, that's the thing. I don't think it's going to happen, but apparently, like that's the word that they want to have happen, but it's not going to happen most likely.
I think it can happen only because keep in mind, Deadpool went back in time and killed Ryan Reynolds. So Deadpool can literally do whatever.
Exactly. That's what I was saying. Like, you can really do whatever you want. It could be a one-off. There's no reason why not.
I don't feel like Deadpool's not even, I don't know. Deadpool's its own thing, which is perfect. I just recently watched for the first time, I watched New Mutants, and it wasn't a bad flick, but I love that they incorporated that these kids are the kids from Logan. Mm-hmm. And I saw that scene and I was like, oh. Yeah.
So I was going to bring that up too, because you have X-23, you have Laura, and the other kids from Logan. New Mutants, could have been much better, but it's not as bad as people were saying. So, people got to give it more of a shot. I do wish that MCU would have been able to get their hands on that before it was done, and then kind of like redone some things. But what can I say? It was dark, it was demented, it was kind of scary. I'll take that. I'll take that all day.
Yeah, it wasn't bad. Last one in the top 5. What you got?
So this one could very well be my number one, like all time. I mean, do I even need to say how big of a fan I am of Miles Morales? Do I? I mean, do I? This right here is the cover for the art book. The art book's not right here. It's actually right in front of me on the table. But this is the cover for the art book. That's how much I like this movie. I bought the DVD as soon as it came out. It has a little figure attached into the box. I've never opened the box. The DVD's never seen air. Neither has the figure. All right, because I bought it from Walmart. And what was cool is when I bought it from Walmart and I ordered it, to get delivered, they sent me the online code immediately. So I've never had to open it. So it just sits there. I've seen it probably out of every Marvel movie, MCU or not, the most. Not only because I love it so much, but my daughter has seen it probably more than I have. She loves it. There is no better comic style adaptation of any movie I've seen when it comes from a comic than Into the Spider-Verse. Not saying there's not a better movie. It's hard to find one. But they actually incorporated comics or a comic style into the movie like you've never seen before, live action or animated. It just was perfect. It wasn't too much, it wasn't too little, and it kind of fit the storyline. Plus, it introduced all the others, or not all the others, but a bunch of other Spideys. Spider-Gwen, who's going to be in quite a bit, or she calls herself Spider-Woman in there. Spider-Ham, which I don't know if he'll ever get his own flick, so whatever. In the Spider-Verse, 2 is not coming out for another couple years. I also have my Game Informer. I'm never letting go because there's Miles right there. I have the game that I've never opened because I don't have a PS5 to play it on. I have all the figures I can get my hands on. I like Miles Morales. What can I say? He is Black and Puerto Rican from Brooklyn. What else do you need? What else do you need to be a fan of a hero that you've been waiting for your whole life? I have the first appearance of him. I have all the other comics of him. I have whatever I can get my hands on Miles Morales wise. I try and get my hands on. As a matter of fact, he's on this mug right here. See, he's right there. See that? He's right there. He's right there. See, Spider-Man, all the characters. And there's Miles. Anyway, my daughter has multiple pieces of clothing that I buy for her with that. My wife has a Miles Morales sweatshirt. She has a Miles Morales T-shirt because I get her all this stuff. I don't know what else I can really say about that. I mean, I just like I don't even need to explain the movie because I just love it so much. I just love I just love it so much. Plus, it had amazing acting. You know, I mean, it had amazing acting, amazing cast. Marsala Ali, you know, am I saying his name right? Played Prowler, and he was badass. You know, and you know the music was dope in it. It was amazing to hear the incorporation of newer music and you know, but with his older parents. Kind of, you know, one's a cop. There's always that thing when your parents a cop and you're a superhero. It's kind of a weird dynamic, and then your uncle's the bad guy. You know what I mean? And you had Jake Johnson. You had, I mean, I'm gonna get all the names. Nicolas Cage, of course. I always forget he was Noir. You know, which Nicolas Cage is always like a hit or miss with me. You know, what I mean, like I'm never really sure how much I like him. But you have Liv Schreiber as Kingpin. I mean, that Kingpin looks really weird. Whatever, it's a cartoon. Of course, Stan Lee was in it in a perfect little role. Talking about it always fits eventually. You know what I mean? If there's any line I can remember, I always remember that. And for a cartoon or an animated film to bring a tear to my eye the way it did when they're all watching Mary Jane talk about Peter Parker and he's like, they're talking about me. And he just, or when he just dies and you hear the music and everyone, it's the perfect scene for this time. When news like that happens, it happened when Kobe died. It happened when Bozeman died. It happened when, you know, all these other guys died. Everyone's on their phones like, what? And you see it on a big announcement on a big screen. If we were in New York, imagine that when Bozeman died, it would have been bam right there in Times Square. Black Panther, King of Wakanda dies, or something, whatever they would have put. It was so just up to date and up to par and all that. It's the only one I've seen now MCU wise, like, or no, movies wise, I've seen in theaters more than twice at this point, and I've seen again, you know, a dozen, however many damn times. But you had also Lauren Velez, which I don't see her do a lot. But the fact that she was the mom, she spoke a little Spanish. There's Puerto Rican flags hanging in his room and on his backpack or whatever it is. You know, he's wearing his Nikes, which kind of I don't care about that. But he's also a graph artist. I mean, they incorporated so much of the character from the comics. I have never loved the character so much since Spider-Man as I do Miles Morales. I'll buy everything Miles Morales I can get my hands on. That's reasonable. I'm not going to buy every single toy. I have some of the figures and you know, quite a few of the comics and all that. But there's just no character I feel as much because of not only where he's from, but his background. The world was waiting for Black Superman, Black Spider-Man. They didn't even realize it until he came. And of course, there's a lot of rejects. You know, oh, you can't have a Black Spider-Man, blah, blah, blah. But the thing is, they made him his own. They made him unique. And this movie showcased why Miles Morales Spider-Man is a different Spider-Man than Peter Parker. He played right next to Peter Parker. And you can see the big differences and the coming of age. He had to make his own suit. He took the old suit that was there. He sprayed it up. He did his thing. He made it his own. He took that leap of faith. He also had the hoodie on. He's running in a funky style. He's jumping in a funky style. They made Miles his own person. It wasn't just a Peter Parker copycat, which is what they did from the get-go. Was made him his own person, which is why he's so beloved, which is why I love him so much. So I can't really go into much more as to why I love him, except for just all those things. I mean, there's just an amazing amount of stuff that I love Miles Morales for, and the fact that he actually resembles my family. You know, you know what I mean? Peter Parker, he's a white guy. He's a white guy from Queens. All right, I get it. Miles Morales, you know, he's the same color as my daughter. I'll take it. And she's Black and Puerto Rican.
If there's anything we've learned or we're expressing in this top 5 is that we, like everybody, most like people who we can relate to. And the fact that I'm like, yeah, I can relate to Blade. I can relate to Black Panther. And you can relate to Miles Morales. Yeah, that's what the fuck. Like, we don't have a lot. So we appreciate this shit. I treat Into the Spider-Verse the same way I treat Black Panther, in that from front to back, perfect movie.
Yeah.
I don't see anything wrong with that movie. I love it. I've seen it multiple times. My kids love it. I just yeah, it's just a great overall product, and it's not too even though it's animated, it's not too comic booky, which may if that makes any sense.
Mhm.
The fact that they incorporate the multiple different spider people from the multiverses is dope to me. I had just binge watched New Girl before watching Into the
Mm.
Spider Verse, so I love Jake Johnson and his version of Spider Man. Like I when I first heard it was like Spider Man, and they said it was Wonder Woman's dude, Captain Kirk,
Yeah,
that guy,
Chris, one of the Chris's, right?
Chris Pine. Yeah, Chris
Chris Pine.
Pine.
Chris Pine.
I was like, okay, Chris Pine, Spider Man, I get it. But then you see he's that original version. I'm like, yeah, okay, that makes
He
sense.
was the blonde one, right?
Yeah, and then you
Yeah.
see the Jake Johnson version, like, oh my god, my man was like, I was in the house doing working out, doing some crunches. He's just fat with the suit on, eating pizza. Like that shit had me dying laughing. Like
Uh,
I don't know. I love that movie. I that's easily go.
you bring up a lot of the lines that are your favorites. So you've heard me say this before, and I've said it in one of the podcasts before when it came to our politicians. Don't watch the mouth, watch the hands.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Because that line right there fits pretty much anyone's life. When someone's trying to talk you and hustle you, don't watch the mouth, watch the hands, because
Mm-hmm.
that's really, you can say what you want, but your actions are going to define you. And so that's a huge lesson in that movie. So yeah, that's perfect. Jake Johnson was so perfect as that when he's like, I'm pretty sure you just called me fat.
It's such a good movie. It's got everything. It's got comedy. It's got action. It's got you name it. It's in that movie.
Yeah, it's
And
a full emotional gamut when it comes to Into the Spider Verse. Granted, same thing with Logan, same thing with Black Panther. All these ones I think we're saying. I think that's probably a big point of it. They take you
yeah,
through all the emotions.
yeah, you want to feel all kinds of things. That's what I think. That's what we're picking movies that went crossed over from these are just comic book movies to these are good movies.
Yeah.
They are good product. And so that will bring me to number one, to my last one, which it's not that it goes without saying, but we're talking about something that's never been done before. You're talking
Hmm.
about something that has been built towards. You were talking about taking 23 movies to come to a finale. And you
Yeah.
were talking about 23 giant movies
Yeah.
that have an ending.
Hmm.
So many times today, like there are so many movies and TV shows that come out, they don't know when they're getting canceled. We have so many unfinished stories, or a new director will show up, or what happened with the Justice League, like this guy left and this person's not in charge. And so for the first time, I want to say in cinematic history, through the span of this many movies, the studio was like, all right, this guy's in charge, make this, get to this, and have it make sense. And Avengers Endgame, to me, that's my number one, because that I treat that as the tail end of all of those movies. It was a perfect send off for some characters. It was a perfect introduction for others. It was, and people used to say, "What's your favorite movie?" And I used to say Braveheart because it had everything. It's got violence, it's got comedy, it's got drama, it's got battle scenes, it's got history. Like you name it, it's all in there.
Hmm.
And I Endgame is in my top five of my one of my favorite movies of all time. Now, mind you, I put Infinity and Endgame kind of as the same movie because they chopped it in half. But
Yeah.
Endgame, that battle scene in Endgame is the greatest battle scene ever because of all the work and the years of work and movies that went into creating that one fucking scene. When people say, "Oh, what about the scene?" No, 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 no. Well, Lord of the Rings, you don't understand. You're talking about a few books. I'm talking about years of movies, all being
Yeah.
put into this one scene. And I love that if you can go on YouTube, you can watch the crowd reaction of that fight scene. And people were like nonstop
Oh
screaming.
yeah.
They were screaming when they showed up. They were screaming halfway through. Captain Marvel shows up. They're screaming. Like it's just nonstop. It's like an ultimate payoff of watching these movies
Hmm.
that we've been watching for years. And I just saw a meme the other day, which I thought was perfect. They show like Captain America standing there and the windows are opening and everybody's coming out. And somebody asked Thanos, "Sir, should we attack?" And he goes, "Hold on, let me see how this finishes out." Like, like even Thanos didn't want to attack. Like, hold on, this is some dope shit. Hold on, hold on, hold on, hold on. Okay. And I don't know. Endgame to me is the perfect culmination of everything the MCU has been trying to do. They had the product. They wanted to end it properly to set up the next stage, which they did. And I mean, every scene you're talking about Tony Stark's funeral, they're showing people who were in like Iron Man 2, and they're showing like their own little groups. These people are from that movie. These people are from that story. Nick
Mm-hmm.
Fury's got his, it was so perfectly put together. It's just a well concocted product, beautiful movie. I can watch that one, regardless of how long it is, multiple times. And you
Oh
said
yeah.
up until Black Panther, people weren't really agreeing until like Killmonger showed up, but then Thanos shows up. And Thanos has his theory. And I can tell you, there have been a bunch of people who've been in traffic in LA, like, you know what, man? Thanos is right, man. Half y'all need to be gone. And it's just like the resources, like the dude kind of makes sense. Call him the Mad
So,
Titan, but he kind of makes
so
sense. It's a beautiful movie. That's my number one.
yeah,
Endgame is it's something that has never been done before, and the fact that it was done through what was originally comic books is insane to me.
yeah. That is. I mean, you can't really say it any better. Shout out to Disney and MCU and all these entities that believed in this long-term project. You gave this to WB, they would have squashed it 8 years ago after the
Yeah,
first few movies. Oh, we're good. We're good. We want to go hold something different now.
yeah,
Why? Why when you got this coming up? So the fact that they had a long-term vision, they stuck with it. Yeah, some things have changed, of course, have to get altered. That's fine. The big fight. So that right there, you're talking about the crowd. I remember myself in the crowd. My biggest thing is when the Caps fought each other. I'm like, okay, I kind of know where this is going. But then also, of course, when Loki left, I'm like, oh, now I'm excited because Loki just left the scene. He's going to get something on his own. I'm
yeah.
excited for that. But then also, when my big thing was when Cap took the hammer, and Thor's like, I knew it. I was like, yes! I jumped up on the screen like, yes! And then when all the girls came out and there was an homage to A Force, Valkyrie was like, whoa! She was screaming at the screen. So like we were there for that opening weekend. We were part of that to see all that go down, and it was such an amazing feeling. And then of course, again, it's funny, it's horrific, it's exciting, and then it's very sad with Tony Stark dying. Spoiler alert, Tony Stark dying. I mean, and like I always get sad when I see Peter Parker crying because that's the only father figure he had, in that little era, and he's going a little bit, and then they have to move him out the way. Then when she says he can rest, it's one of those things. Like how many of us at some point when we get to a point of our lives where we're gonna feel like, when can I rest? You know what I mean? And he got to that point, and just all the elements. Plus, it was a nice surprise to see that they did time travel. I didn't know where they were going, because one thing that the MCU did, yes, it's superheroes and it's comic book and all that, but they usually played, besides the non-realistic stuff, with more realistic ideas, I guess you could say. Human, this and that, except for all the space ones. That's different. But then they brought in time travel, something that's completely theoretical and cannot be proven to this point. And they go back and forth, and then they really kind of show you all these little different takes. That was perfect. I mean, you nailed it on the head with that one. That was freaking perfect. And then I mean, what else can you really say about that? You know what I mean? Because when it came to Thanos, I have been, since I heard it, I was like, Thanos is right. Like, the only problem that people have, and it's the same problem in all movies like this, The Day the Earth Stood Still, all these other movies, is you have to give that civilization the chance to adapt and change.
Right.
Here's the thing: as humans, we have proven nothing's going to change soon enough. Half this world will probably perish in our child's lifetime due to shit like famine. You know what I mean? And not enough water and food. Right now, in Northern California, they're not even planting crops because they're like, you know what? We don't have enough water. So that's coming up later. That's a whole different subject to get into. But this was just talked about earlier today. Anytime you have civilizations that are growing, Thanos was kind of right. Like, they're gonna grow beyond their places, their resources. And then what? They're just gonna die off slowly at that point. So he had a good point in what he was going at. It was just the way about it that they disagreed with.
Right.
Because then what are you gonna do by killing half people on the earth? At least Avengers, they were more concerned with the humanitarian part of it, not the economics. Because you tell the politicians right here, we're gonna lose half the country, all they're gonna think about, what about the money?
Yeah. Yeah.
Where's all our money gonna come from?
The
I mean,
thing,
so there's that.
the thing I agree with Thanos the most on is not just that it was getting rid of half the population, is the fact that it was random. That's the part that I think a lot of people look over. It's not like he was like, we're going to get rid of all the bad people or we're going to get rid of half the bad people, half the good people. No, it was random. Just half. That's it. And that, I feel like that's the most logical thing he said in that whole theory of his, where it was just like, I'm not picking who. I'm not going through fucking jails and be like, you get to die, you get to die. Nope. I'm going to snap. Half the people are going to disappear. That's it. That way. And to me, I'm like, yeah, dude, that's as fair as it gets. He fucking flipped the coin on humanity.
I think after this episode, people are going to think we're genocidal maniacs.
Right. They only like the dark, gritty ones, and they want us to.
I mean, look at the pandemic and what it did. Traffic was nice until today, when we entered the yellow tier. All of a sudden, my traffic was back to normal within one day. It was amazing to see. I was like, this is incredible that this happened. But you know,
I'm just happy that something forced people to fucking wash their nasty ass hands. That's what I'm.
Yeah, there's that. All right. Well, I mean, I guess that's all wrapped up with our top genocidal movies. At this point.
So let's do our quick what the shit. This was just announced today, actually, this morning as we're recording. Actor, comedian, writer, legend, activist, Paul Mooney died at 79 years old from a heart attack. And I'm a Paul Mooney fan. I've been a Paul Mooney fan for a long time. Negro Damas. I like the Richard Pryor show when he would write for the Richard Pryor show. I've seen a few of his stand-ups. I feel like he's one of the last of the controversial comedians in that he was around with Robin Williams. He was around with George Carlin. He was around with Richard Pryor. He was around with Red Fox. He was one of these comedians who was in the clubs when like a young Eddie Murphy was in the club. And Eddie Murphy was on a show recently promoting Coming to America, and he told a story about how he had done a set and he was supposed to do 5 minutes, and like 20 minutes in, they're like, yo, man, get off stage. He goes, no, fuck that. And so after the show, John Witherspoon, Pops, and Paul Mooney came up to him and cornered him after the show, like, who the fuck you think you are, young ass nigga?
There you go.
They went to check him, and he goes, later on, Richard Pryor made them apologize to him. He's like, no, man, you guys are just fucking with this kid because he's the hot shit right now. Apologize. But the fact that he was like, John Witherspoon was like, I'll beat your ass. And he was like, Paul Mooney was like, who do you think you are? Fuck you and your mother. All right.
Yeah.
He said, Eddie was like, I was there, and it was me and my agent, who was a white guy. He's like, Paul Mooney took a knife out. He was like, I'll cut you in, that fucking white boy. He was like, that was Paul Mooney. That was some old brush shit. And these were old dudes. The fact that Pops just recently passed and now Paul Mooney passed, it's like, dude, they're just falling off. We're just losing them. And the last stand-up I saw Paul Mooney's was from a few years ago. I remember he was dressed clean. He was sitting down the whole time. And it was just like watching like your old shit talking aunt just shit on people. Like he was just like
that was him.
Yeah. He was like, yeah, I don't. He was like, I think Rihanna whipped that boy's ass. Rihanna whipped Chris Brown's ass. Everybody's like, what? He goes, come on, she had to whip his ass. She's from the Caribbean. Come on, she whipped his ass.
I think the same thing actually. I'm like, I know she put hands on him too.
Yeah. He was like,
what he did to her, but
he was like, he had to bite that bitch because she was whipping his ass. Of course she did. I'm like, yo, Paul Mooney has always said some shit to where you're like, damn. You put him up there with like Dick Gregory and these cats who just they had that old school thinking, that old school mentality. We just lost another old school legend, and it's sad to see, but I'm glad he made it to 79. A heart attack is a fucked up way to go.
Yeah, it hurts.
80 years as a black person in America is a long life. Period.
Well,
So
I mean, you're talking about a man who was a professional comedian 50, 60 years at this point. Maybe longer if you consider he probably started in his teens, like in the school, you know what I mean? On the school bus or walking to school, whatever it was, you know, unashamed of who he was. Like you said, activist. The story you say about Eddie Murphy, I think was perfect. That sounds like something Mooney would do. And I love Pops. Everyone loves Pops. I mean, we they go bang, bang, bang all the time. You know, I can't say much about Mooney because you were the guy who knows about Mooney. I knew him from Chappelle's show, and then I researched before that. And just the fact that he was a man who just was proud to be himself, you know what I mean? And that was it. Did it hurt? Maybe sometimes if people kind of got on him for whatever reason, you know, in private, who knows? It doesn't matter. He tried to make us laugh, and that's all he cared about. You know, whether he was an asshole doing it or he was just straight being funny about it. I think that's pretty perfect. And it really sucks that we lost him. 79 is not young. He actually reached, he got he lived longer than the average age of the American. So I'll take that. I'll take that.
Yeah.
It does suck. We lost him and Pops in the last couple of years and stuff like that. So, but
I think he blazed the trail for. Without him, there's no Hannibal Buress. Without him, there's no Donald Glover because he was the comedic writer. He wrote like the first season of the Wayans Brothers, and so he wrote half the Richard Pryor shows. So the dude was a comedic writer who could also do stand up. He's one of those writers who did so well with his writing that he didn't have to do as well doing stand up. You know what I mean? He wasn't like it was like he was such a good writer, like what Conan O'Brien was before he got his own show, that he didn't get the credit for being a great stand up comedian, but he was too busy writing and making everybody else look funny. So, all right, rest in power to Mr. Mooney. You will be missed, and I'm probably gonna go find that stand up, that last one I was talking about, and rewatch it.
Nice.
And, yeah. So that is our top 5. Yet again, before you come at us, bruh, post your top 5 and then tell us how you feel about ours. All right.
Post it and tag us or something. Just post it and tag us. Hey, I got you right here.
Yeah. I mean, I'm sure we had to, out of our 10, at least one of ours hit your top 5. Come on, don't be an asshole. And even if it didn't, whatever.
And come at me. And when you tell me that Avengers is in your top 5, I'll tell you why it sucks.
Till next time, I'm Shaun Q. Be smart.
Jay Roman, we out.
Peace. Keep it old school.